All right, welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into a really tricky Premier League matchup with the help of our Spectra AI. We've got Crystal Palace taking on Aston Villa. So let's fire up the models and see what the data is telling us.
And really, it all comes down to this one question, right? Who's going to win? Now, you've got two really talented squads here, but trust me, the data is telling a very complex story. So let's get into it and break down what the AI is seeing for this big game. Okay, so let's set the scene. The showdown is going down on Wednesday, January 7th. It's going to be under the lights at Selhurst Park in London. You know that home crowd is going to be absolutely buzzing, but Aston Villa, they're not just showing up for a visit. They're coming to town with some serious ambition. So first things first, let's size these squads up. We're going to look at the tail of the tape. Before we even touch on form or tactics, let's just ask, where do these two clubs stand in the grand scheme of things? What do the raw numbers say? All right, let's start with the ELO rating. Now, if you're not familiar, it's basically a system that measures a team's overall strength. The higher the number, the stronger the team, right? And right away, you can see Aston Villa has a pretty clear advantage here, nearly 1,600 compared to Crystal Palace's 1,551. So just looking at this, on paper, you'd have to say Villa are the favorite. But is the story really that simple? Of course not. We all know football is never, ever played on paper. And while that ELO rating gives us a nice baseline, there is a massive, massive variable that's thrown a huge wrench into this matchup for both sides. And here it is. This is the problem. Just look at these injury lists. Both clubs are dealing with a serious crisis. For Crystal Palace, you're missing a key midfield presence like Schick Ducour and a creative force like Daichi Kamada. And on the other side, Aston Villa is without defensive rocks like Tyrone Mings and Paul Torres. I mean, this level of disruption, it just adds a massive layer of uncertainty to the whole thing. So with all this chaos and noise, how do you even begin to make a prediction? Well, this is where we turn to our AI's expert panel. I like to call them our digital detectives. This is where the Spectra AI really gets to work, using a pretty sophisticated technique to make sense of this whole mess. At the heart of it all is something called an ensemble model. Now, the easiest way to think about this is like having a committee of experts, right? Instead of just listening to one opinion, you bring in a bunch of different specialists, combine all their insights, and you end up with a much stronger, much more accurate final conclusion. And here's our team. These are the 5 specialist AI models that make up our ensemble. You've got Random Forest, Naive Bayes, Light GBM, the whole crew. Each one of them analyzes the match from a completely different angle. They all give their own prediction, and then Spectra AI takes all those insights and combines them into one single powerful forecast. Okay, so the analysis is done, the digital detectives have had their meeting, the ensemble has reached its decision. It's time to see the final verdict. So, what does the AI predict? So after analyzing all of that data, I'm talking the ELO ratings, historical performance, and of course, factoring in all those crazy injuries, the AI has reached a conclusion. It's crunched the numbers and calculated the probabilities for every possible outcome. Okay, here we go. The single most likely result, according to the AI, is an Aston Villa victory with a probability of 43.68%. So even with their injuries and even playing away from home, the model still sees them as the favorites. Coming in as the second most likely outcome is a draw. The AI is giving this a 30.8% chance. And that's actually pretty high, and it really reflects all that uncertainty we were talking about because of the weakened squads. And that leaves us with a Crystal Palace win at home. The AI sees this as the least likely of the 3 outcomes, with about a 25.5% probability. So it looks like that home field advantage just isn't quite enough to overcome Villa's underlying strength, even with all those players out. Now, when you put all 3 probabilities together like this, it tells a really interesting story. Yeah, okay, Aston Villa is the favorite, but if you combine the chances of a draw or a Palace win, that's actually over 56%. So the big takeaway here is clear. While Villa is the most likely winner, an upset is definitely on the table. And we can add another layer to this. The AI also calculates something called expected goals. It's basically how many goals each team should score based on the quality of the chances they're likely to create. And again, it points to Villa. The model predicts they'll score about 1.9 goals to Crystal Palace's 1.35. So the AI sees Villa as the stronger attacking side here.
So, what does this mean for the final score? Well, the AI runs thousands of simulations to figure out the most likely scorelines. And what comes out on top? A 2-1 victory for Aston Villa. That's followed pretty closely by a 1-1 draw. And if you look at this list, you'll notice something. 4 of the top 5 most probable scores are either an Aston Villa win or a draw. It just reinforces that overall prediction. Okay, so as we start to wrap this up, there's something really important we need to talk about, and that's how to use this kind of information responsibly. It is so important to remember what this is and what it isn't. AI predictions are all about probabilities, not certainties. They're amazing tools for understanding a match, but they are not a crystal ball. This does not guarantee any outcome. So please, use this information for what it is, for fun, for entertainment. And on that note, if you or anyone you know ever needs support with gambling, please know that help is always available. The National Problem Gambling Helpline is free, it's confidential, and they're available 24/7. Don't ever hesitate to make that call. So the AI has spoken. But with so many injuries, with so much chaos on both sides of the pitch, couldn't this be the match that defies the odds? This feels like exactly the kind of game where an upset is just waiting to happen. I guess we'll all have to watch to find out.